Well, 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 what have we got here? It's the Behringer Poly-D. Just arrived, it's a bit late, it was meant to come before Christmas, but better late than never. So let's see what's in the box. And the first thing I've noticed is sort of how well packaged it is. This is underneath the keys. Keep the keys nice and safe in transportation, if I can get this out. And the second thing I noticed is how compact it is. I've been playing with the Minimoog all weekend, and it's a lot chunkier than this. I thought it was going to be a bit bigger when the box arrived. It wasn't double box, but I thought the box was quite small. I say compact, but full-size keys, 1, 2, 3 octaves. The Minimoog itself goes down a little bit further. It goes down to an F, I think it is, down here. But nice size. And a similar setup to the Minimoog in how you stand it up. Really nice. I'll leave it like that though, so it's easier to see on the video. So as with all this new Behringer stuff, the pots feel really nice and secure. Buttons are nice. It's got the same buttons on the sequencer that I didn't really like on the ARP or the Crave. But if you're making something to a price point, you know, obviously they've got this sequencer, it works, and they're putting it in everything, really good. I will be comparing this to my Minimoog very soon, so without going into too much detail on it, first things you notice is that the switches are slightly smaller, the panel looks a little bit more crowded, but in no way crowded, it's just full. There's more going on in a smaller space, but it feels like a really nice quality bit of kit actually. So the main differences you see straight away are obviously the mono, uni and poly mode. Auto damp, I'm not sure what that is yet. And over here we've got an extra switch for the filter mode, high or low. Then we've got this distortion circuit and the chorus circuit, which looks like it's been based on the Juno 106 or the Juno 60 or the Juno 6. Other noticeable difference, the decay switch is here, not down here. You've got a transpose button, which you don't have on the Minimoog. And you've got an additional LFO like you do on the Model D and you do on the Minimoog reissue. You've got a separate phones output. You don't have your A440 oscillator for tuning. And looking at the back panel, we've got the power in, USB, plus 5-pin DIN, MIDI in, MIDI out and MIDI through. You've got int control outputs. So you've got internal control outputs, must that be? After pressure, pitch, V-trig and velocity. Not sure what these trimmers are for, maybe for trimming the actual amount of velocity, that's output. Input, we've got an external signal, we've got sync in and out, main outs that are balanced, which is nice. External V-trig input and the external control inputs. We've got loudness, filter, oscillator and mod source. So, interesting. But yeah, as I say, even the wood feels a bit like the Minimoog reissues would. Hasn't got the wood panel on the front that the Minimoog's got, or the wood panel on the back, but you know, this is £600 as compared to £3,500. So there's a big difference in price. So I'm really looking forward to plugging it in and seeing what it can do. Power's switched on up, US style, just like on the Minimoog. All lights up. LEDs on the oscillators, I've just noticed there. A nice touch, and that's probably because when you're playing polyphonically or paraphonically, it's good to see which oscillators are playing. And we've got these glowing pitch and mod wheels. So I know I've said it before, it does feel like a nice quality bit of kit. I got myself a bit confused with this when I was trying to play around with it for a bit, and that's because it's velocity sensitive in a way when you first get it. So you have velocity on is dynamic, and you have down here, which is actually on 96 when you first get it. So if you play anything with a velocity of over 96, you get a little accent. I was racking my brain thinking the filter tracking was completely broken and wasn't working, and it was because the velocity was on dynamic. So if we put it on constant and on 1, it doesn't matter how hard you press the key, you're always going to get the same response. But I have to say that really did confuse me for a while, and I thought the machine was broken. So just a warning really, or a word of advice to get the synth tool and understand what's going on in it before you start. So let's see if I can get some sound out of it. All the oscillators are playing there. I know it's not, not any MIDI issues because it's got with its own keyboard, which is really nice. Let's turn the cutoff up. On the, let's just try and go for a single oscillator. Volume up. Filter mode low. Emphasis down. Control down. Here we go. Turn the decay off. Just had to click the left cable in or the right cable in a little bit more. Let's put transpose on normal. Down. I've got this plugged into the Scala and it's going into the line instrument level. It's quite low at the minute actually, but it does have a distortion circuit and I will be bringing in the other oscillator, so maybe that will increase the volume somewhat. Let's try that. Let's put them all on about 0. Well, that's fat, isn't it? So things are working so far. Got it in mono mode. Let's just try poly mode straight away. I haven't given this any time to warm up, by the way. So this is literally, it's pretty much live as you're watching this. Really interesting having essentially a Model D that's, well, paraphonic, polyphonic, whatever you want to call it. I know I've seen quite a few discussions of is it polyphonic or is it paraphonic? Does depend on different envelopes, this, that and the other, but they're calling it polyphonic. I just said it's paraphonic, like a mono poly or the grandmother. But a lovely idea nonetheless. Just checking all the volumes up because it does seem quite low. Bring this in. And it's still not troubling the levels, so I'm going to put it through a couple of other channels on the Focusrite. Just change the inputs in the Scala to some with some preamps. That's a lot better. So just a quick overview of the oscillators, because they are like the standard Model D or the Minimoog oscillators. You've got triangle, shark's tooth, sawtooth, square, I think it's a 50% pulse, and a 25, or is it a 10, I'm not sure. Looks like a 25, that, doesn't it? And oscillator 4 acts like oscillator 3 does on the Minimoog, in that you can decouple it from the keyboard, and it has a ramp as well as a saw, rather than the sort of shark's tooth. And that's useful for sort of LFOs, isn't it? Let's just try a bit of that. Oscillator modulation on. Turn that off. Put this on low mode. So that's your ramp, or is that the ramp or the sawtooth? I always get them mixed up which way around they are. The other three don't have that extra mode. Maybe try a little bit of FM while we're in here, shall we? All very nice, that, isn't it? But I'll dig into these a bit more when I do a comparison with the Minimoog itself. Try a bit of FM on the filter. Maybe add a bit of chorus to that, stick it on a square. Nice, getting some weird effects with that chorus, aren't you? I'll take a look at the chorus in a minute. So let's just have a little play with the filter. Let's just stick on a single sawtooth. A click there. Filter sounds nice, but that click's a bit weird. Let's turn all the oscillators off. So it's clicking when I've got all the oscillators turned off. Can't remember the Minimoog doing that. I know this isn't a comparison with this and the Minimoog, but I'll just go and push a few buttons on it, see if it does the same. So yeah, it does do it on the Minimoog, but not to the extent it does it on this. So whether I've got a dodgy unit, whether they all do that, I don't know. But I mean, this is just my first impressions. Get it out of the box, have a little play with it. And once I've started actually playing with it, that's the first thing I've noticed, which is a real shame. Because that would annoy me, to be honest. Let's add a bit of contour to it. But just playing around with that for a couple of seconds, I've edited the video down obviously because I'm hopping up and down across the studio, but I did notice that they sound really, really similar when they're up here. So even though we've got the clicking, we've still got a sort of a really nice sounding synth. It's got me, that actually. So if you've got one of these, let me know in the comments if yours is doing the same sort of thing. So turn everything off and just see if, as the oscillators trigger, you're getting that click. But let's not dwell on that any longer. Let's just play a little bit more with the filter and the emphasis. All that, very nice. Beautiful, those filters, aren't they? Let's have a listen to the self-resonance. Let's take the contour off, stick on the keyboard control. Turn it down a bit. I'm just trying to tune it in to see if I can play the resonance. What's going on there? So I'm trying to play it just as a simple sine wave. Filter modulation's off, it's on low, there's no contour. But just that as contour. Let's try and turn the emphasis down a little bit. Okay, so just a little word on filter tracking, and this is a lot later in the day than my original review. And that's because of having such trouble with that filter tracking. I couldn't understand what was going on. And as I said earlier on, it's because I hadn't looked at the synth tool and I didn't realise that there was an accent in there. So when I was playing at slightly different velocities, I was getting that little accent, and that was what was causing the filter to modulate. So we've got filter tracking on now. Put the emphasis up. Fine. So that big sine you can hear, that's the filter. Let's just play it. So that's working flawlessly. But I can't say, I spent about an hour trying to, just going through everything I possibly could to try and work out, because I thought it can't be broken. I've never had a broken Behringer keyboard or synthesizer, so I'm really pleased that I figured that out before I released the video, showing what an idiot I am. And just a quick look at the high pass. Doesn't completely kill the low frequencies, but it gets rid of them substantially. And it is resonant. And I think this reminds me of the Crave. In bringing the emphasis in, reduces the sort of effect of the high pass itself, so the low frequencies come back in again. So if I take the resonance off, and as you bring the resonance in, the low frequencies sort of gradually come up again. So interesting, useful. So let's explore the polyphony. I've just made the sort of pad style sound. And you'll notice it's re-triggering on every note because it doesn't have separate envelopes for the separate oscillators or voices. So it does sort of nice textures, really. Which is different than a polyphonic synth. It sounds different to or the way it plays is different to something like a Prophet 6. But Prophet 6 can't do this, for example. The re-triggering each of the oscillators as you play the next note up. Well, it's not re-triggering the oscillator, but it's re-triggering the envelope that they all go through. do interesting things like play 4 notes when you've only got 3 of the oscillators on. Interesting, isn't it? Let's go back to a sort of a more straight pad sound. Really charming sound, I'd say. So let's try adding the chorus to that. It looks like it's being based on the Juno choruses. So. Quite nice. Don't know why they've got an on and off button when you can just turn them on and off there. Really nice addition, that. Nice way of bringing out the polyphony. Or the paraphony, whatever you want to call it. But let's try it on sort of a Mr. Finger style bass. That's just a simple square wave going through the chorus, so chorus off. Now let's put it back in mono. Nice chorus, but it's got a little bit of noise to it, but so do the Junos, and it doesn't bother me in that. It's just a bit of character. No problems with that whatsoever. But that click, I do have a problem with, actually. What, they like both together? Ooh. Yeah, well, that doesn't sound like the Junos. That's nice. That's nice. That's just a bit, well, you know, it sounds crazy. It's not like having like 1 + 2 chorus, it's like a completely separate sound. It's sort of warbly, isn't it? That's not to my taste, shall we say. And it's a shame that they've got this on-off button that you don't really need. Be nice to have a blend button, wouldn't it? Or blend knob, I should say. Because I want to sort of just play with it. Okay, let's have a look at this unison mode. In unison mode, it splits the oscillators between however many keys you play in. So if I play 1 key, let's turn them all on. It's playing all the oscillators. If I play 2 keys, so oscillators 1 and 2 are playing the C, oscillators 3 and 4 are playing the E. And you can see when I take the E off, oscillators 3 and 4 aren't lit anymore on the LEDs. Don't know if you can see that. But they're still playing because the envelope hasn't changed. So even though you're holding one key down, you're actually playing the C, 2 oscillators on the C and 2 oscillators on the F at the minute. So really odd, isn't it? So I'd have to get used to playing that and working out, you know, what I can do with it. But interesting. So after a little play as well, I've worked out what auto damp does. It affects the way the envelopes work with the loudness contour, and it effectively sort of uses a gate rather than the loudness contour when you've got the auto damp on, and I'll show you what I mean there. So if we have something where we play a bass line on the left and a chord on the right. So the bass is on oscillator 1. And you can hear the bass note is still playing. Let's turn everything down a bit so you can hear just the bass note. So you can hear that's holding on there when auto damp's on off. Let's put auto damp on. So it's not being affected by the envelope, although the last note will be. So if I do that again. Just turn these up. They still fade out. So whichever oscillator's last off triggers the decay or the release. And without. So I'm sure there's lots of other uses for that that we can come up with over the following years. So let's take a look at the distortion circuit now, shall we? Just using a simple sawtooth. Turn it on. And obviously when you bring the distortion circuit in, this level is now in play. Off. On. And that tone's on around 50% there. So you can go a lot brighter with it in. This is with 0 distortion. So let's leave it on around 50% and then bring in the distortion itself. Let's put a bit of emphasis on. You're going to hear a bit of noise through that as well, can't you? It's quite a lot when you turn it up full. Let's bring it back in again, and as you turn the overdrive up on the Minimoog, you sort of you kill the emphasis. Let's try that. Nice, that I can see that being really useful on some nice sequences. Which brings us to the sequencer. So I'm assuming it's the same as it is on the Crave. Let's try and record something in. If you want to know how that works, look at my Crave sequencer tutorial, because that covers basically what looks like this exactly, doesn't it? Just with a couple of omissions, I'd have thought. But I'll dig into that in another video. So this was just meant to be a quick sort of get out the box, have a little play, what you think. And I think it's a really sort of nice quality build. It's a nice synth. You get a lot of synth in what's quite a small package actually. Full size keys, same size keyboard as the Sub 37. The wood's really nice. The knobs are sturdy, as are the switches. You know, it feels like a quality bit of kit. Yeah, it's a really nice synth. I'm a bit disappointed in this clicking. I'd say the Minimoog does it, but not quite to that extent. How much that would actually affect once I'm in the mix and I'm playing with it, I don't know. That'll be in an updated video at some point, I think. All in all, I don't want to end on a negative because the overall impression is really good. So I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.